Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, the day is upon us. We have gotten the full Resonator previews for, of course, the first unit arriving during Wuthering Waves' anniversary in version 3.3, Hiyuki, and we've also gotten some insight into the second unit as well, Denia. And there's naturally a lot of hype when it comes to both of these units because she's supposed to be stronger than a Sentinel Resonator in lore. And she is quite clearly, based off the animations that we've seen in some of those Xbox previews, she is the Thronodian's Resonator. And one of the big things about these two units is that they're some of the highest budget units that we've had in the history of the game. And I'll show you exactly why. Sorry, I should have had this prepared beforehand. I should have. I kind of done fucked it all up over here. Because both of these units, you can clearly see, they've got some alternative forms that are going to be built into their kit, and it's very, very, very clear from the ultimate animations that they've decided to show alongside the actual units in this special preview that we had for that Xbox announcement. So with that in mind, it's very, very, very obvious that these are two of the most hyped units ever released in the history of the game. And my job today and my goal today is to break down just how good of an investment they might actually be. And of course, bring up the conversation of, are they going to be free-to-play friendly? And so with that out of the way, with all the information that we do have and all the information that we unfortunately don't, just keep in mind that there are basically no leaks at all anywhere for these units. I have got that verification from people that naturally do browse that content. There's pretty much no information at all. But with the knowledge that Hiyuki is a Glacio Sword character, and with the knowledge that Denia is a Fusion Rectifier, and all of the existing equipment that we have in the game, I do think that there's at least a decent conversation we can have for people that are planning to pull. So without further ado, I think actually the best unit to get us started off with is the unit that we clearly know the most information about, and that's going to be Denia. And to get a full clue as to what's actually going on over here, I'm actually going to have to grab her splash art because it becomes very, very, very obvious once you have that information from her splash what her role is. So when it comes to Denia, her Sonata set is already in the game. And if you aren't really clear with that by now, let me just show you exactly what it looks like by using mini Denia over here. Like, Denia really just looks like a grown-up Encore, right? And the set that she has equipped. It is none other than Chromatic Foam. And when you read this ability, it becomes kind of obvious what's happening. When the Resonator inflicts Fusion Burst on enemies, they gain the following effects: 10% fusion damage bonus for 15 seconds. And while this effect is active, casting an outro grants the incoming Resonator a 25% fusion damage bonus. So Chromatic Foam is Denia's set for a couple of reasons. Just look at the icon. It is a circle with like the kind of like cross thing in the middle. And boy, oh boy, what do you see on Denia's chest over here? And what do you see in this animation over here, right? Let's take a bit of a closer look. You can see that same circle inside, and that's supposed to represent, ladies and gentlemen, that is supposed to represent Aleph 1. And you can see it very visibly over here. So that symbol that's inside of her tacit mark, right on her chest, and it's also in the impact frame too. Let's just see it, actually. Y'all said it's the impact frame? Let's see it. Yeah, you just kind of see that circle everywhere, bro. Yeah, you kind of just see it everywhere. I think that's the point that people are trying to drive. It's clearly hers. And when you have the knowledge of the existing Fusion Burst sort of support that we have in the game at the moment, one more? Okay, fine. This shit sometimes like just lags out my YouTube like crazy. So, do excuse me if, wait, bro, how, oh. Oh, I see what you're talking about now. Yeah, no, that's, yeah, no, that's the same photo. Yeah, no, that is without a doubt the same fucking photo. So with the knowledge of what we have, it's pretty much confirmed that this is supposed to be Denia's set. And Denia has been the missing piece in the Fusion Burst team that's oriented around this unit. And we all know that Amith is having a bit of a struggle, right, with Aleph 1. That's currently her space in the story. And the next part of the Wuthering Waves story is for us to go out and actually save her. And lo and behold, if you've looked at her kit before, you're probably knowledgeable about the fact that she has a Fusion burst mode that is meta-wise useless because you don't have the other character that's actually able to apply Fusion Burst. All you have is Chisa over here, who's able to raise the upper stack limit of the ability, but without having, you know, another applier, you're kind of clearly seeing that there's a lot of issues with running this in pretty much any situation ever. Her Toon Rupture team is better to pretty much every possible degree. And so the realization that I feel like a lot of people are naturally having is that Denia is probably just going to be an Imith support, an Imith sub DPS. And that basically means, hey, unless you want to play the fusion version variant of her team, Denia might not actually be a great unit to actually invest in. And that's a little bit sad, right? That's a little bit unfortunate. But this is where I'm going to come in with a different perspective. Maybe there's going to be a possibility that her second form over here actually does have some other supportive abilities. And that's why I've been saying this is clearly a dual form unit. This is clearly a unit that's meant to have a lot of pulls, a lot of attention surrounding them because they're the Threnodian's resonator. Who else is a Threnodian resonator in this game? Kinda Kartathea, but nothing else. It would be not the best look, in my opinion, for the Threnodian resonator to just kind of be like a single purpose, honestly, a little bit boring of a unit where all they do is just support one other character on the roster, right? That's not a great look at all for a Threnodian unit who's meant to represent one of the strongest beings in the universe, Aleph 1. And so that's why my take has always been, she's probably going to have something along the lines of Linnae, a dual resonance mode where she's able to maybe take on a different role when it comes to how she's going to support people. And I think that this is one of the things that might actually occur. She might have a mode that straight up converts all of her fusion damage bonuses and stuff, everything, to Glacio. Because, right, I think her baseline form, you got like the red gloves and everything, right? But it's called chromatic foam. Chromatic means across an entire color spectrum. And her gloves over here are blue. So it could really just be that she's a dual purpose Fusion Burst, but then also Glacio Chafe character. Because what's another unit in the game that we've seen convert negative statuses? Zani. Her entire kit just straight up converts, right, any bit of Spectral Frazzle into a Helical Ember, but then the Helical Embers still count as Spectral Frazzle stacks. And I'm hoping, right, and it would make a lot of sense for this unit to have a similar sort of conversion, maybe as one of their resonance modes, where Fusion Burst stacks get converted into Glacio Chafe stacks, and they basically count for the purposes of the Chromatic Foam set. Because the wording over here, it feels like they could just do the same exact thing, but then make the Fusion Burst stacks turn into Glacio Chafe. And I know Kuro doesn't really go with colors that often, but red over here does mean fusion, and I think it would be pretty neat, and also lore friendly, and also befitting of a Threnodian resonator for her to have a resonance mode where Fusion Burst, all the fusion damage bonuses, all that, it's just converted to Glacio Chafe and Glacio damage as a whole. That's my personal take. And if Kuro doesn't do this, I'm honestly going to be very surprised. Or at least if they don't do anything dual resonance mode-wise, because that would just make this Threnodian tier resonator really feel lacking, at least in my opinion. When they've been hyping this sort of stuff up, you know, with Siren, all of that, they've been hyping this shit up for a very, very long time. Since actually, like, you know, like, honestly, since, like, version 2.8. And so, if she's just single purpose, if she doesn't have resonance modes, if all she does, right, is just Fusion Burst, and then she only has one team in the game, you know, just one singular team in the game where she's with Imith, sure, I guess. But that, to me, doesn't really seem like a great use of a character that's meant to have that much lore significance. And as we all know, Kuro likes to do this thing where characters that are supposed to be powerful in the lore, they end up doing quite a bit on the battlefield with their kits as well. So, yeah, that's just my personal take when it comes to Denia. Now, let's talk a little bit about her actual weapon options, all of that sort of stuff as a rectifier user. I'm going to be honest over here. Depending on how long you've played this game, Denia probably has some decent options that you're going to be able to go with right off rip. And the best way for us to do that is just go over to the gallery, take a look at weapons, and of course, just scroll all the way down to take a look at the rectifiers that are available. And the first one that's really going to, I think, just get people's attention is, of course, Stringmaster. Yes, Yinlin might be the biggest piece of dog shit in the game, but thankfully, her signature is also one of the best, simply due to the fact that it gives insane amounts of crit rate, a decent level of attack. It is kind of lower in the game, but this amount of crit rate basically makes building any rectifier character that doesn't need specific stats like ER an absolute dream. And who knows, right? Maybe Kuro's gonna really kick it off during the anniversary and allow people to potentially get a free version of this. Nobody knows. There's no leaks out there. Giving out a free version of a 1.0 units weapon doesn't really seem that crazy. And guess what? That would probably incentivize a lot of people to pull for Denia, because this is usable on pretty much every character that like isn't like Shorekeeper, Booling, or Verena. And that's how it's been since the start of the game. Yes, other character signatures do end up working better for them, but this is usually like an alternative that's only like 10 to 15% worse. And especially when Denia is slated to be a sub DPS, she's not a main DPS, that damage loss is even less significant across her teams. And that's pretty much been the case for every single sub DPS, right? Think you're Jeja. Do you care if Jeja doesn't have her sig and is using Stringmaster? No, because the difference in damage of your team is like 1%. Cantarella, do you care if Cantarella has her sig instead of Stringmaster? Fuck no, because the difference in damage, like I said before, is like 1% in team damage. Now, though, there's a different conversation that we do need to have, and that's the fact that Denia is also the first rectifier user in Lahai Roi, and potentially could be the only rectifier user in Lahai Roi. And one thing you guys have probably noticed, right, is that the characters that, well, released, maybe she fucking uses this one. I don't know, bro. Right? Like, everyone knows that the Boson Astrolabe is like the most weird looking signature we've ever had in the history of the game in terms of the stats it provides. And this could mean that Denia is maybe like somebody with some built-in ER scaling, right? She could be somebody that with built-in ER scaling. And if you look at some of the stuff over here, maybe she deals basic attack damage. I don't know. Or maybe this thing is just designed to be like the biggest bait in gacha history on the standard banner. Because guess what, guys? This thing is some absolute fucking shit. Nobody uses this because the stat blend is 525 attack and 38.8% ER. What is the fucking point of this? Who's supposed to use this? What is it good for? It's such an odd blend of stats, and while yes, it is easy to activate a Tomb Break to get its damage bonus, who the fuck is supposed to use this shit? Maybe it's for Lucilla's. Maybe it's for when Lucilla releases in a future version. But like I mentioned before, Denia is the first rectifier user in Lahai Roi, so be on the lookout. Save your standard pulls just in case she's actually the user of this thing, because that would be pretty solid as well. And we've already gotten a history that Lahai Roi units end up synergizing very, very, very well with some of the new standard weapons that have been released. For example, Liu Kurson is one of the least signature reliant units in the game because Pulsation Bracer exists and basically perfectly matches his fucking kit. And it could be that Denia is also in that same boat, and she deals basic attack damage and then like scales off of ER in like some odd fucking way. That could entirely be the case as well. And maybe Denia is going to be our first character that doesn't want like any crit at all. That could also be the case. The first character that doesn't want any crit at all, and like, I don't know, like her fusion burst damage like scales off of her attack or something. And so you just want to like spam attack stats on her. Like it scales off her ER, who knows, right? All of those options are out there. And the fact that this presents such a unique stat blend in the game is something that we should all keep top of mind. Another thing to think about is that Cosmic Ripples, oddly enough, has a very similar sort of stat blend to the Boson Astrolabe. And this is what I'm talking about as well. They kind of all have the same stats. ER, basic attack damage, and then attack main stat. This one is ER, attack boost, and then basic attack damage. So it could be that Cosmic Ripples is also getting another potential user, because right now nobody fucking uses this shit. It's just complete garbage, right? Another thing to think about is that this is called the Boson Astrolabe. And one of the big things about Denia is that she studies void matter and like space and shit like that. Denia, a Department of Void Matter student, right? She's all about space, and naturally, she's Aleph 1's resonator, who's in space. And so for the Astrolabe, I mean, just lore-wise, right? This does seem like it's an option that makes sense for her because Astro's also space. Do you guys see what I'm talking about over here? It's getting a little bit looser as time goes on. And like this weapon is called Cosmic Ripples. Cosmic, which is also about space. So it's kind of just like, it would be very fitting, right? If Denia's able to work with both of the rectifiers, and she's a basic attacker and all of that, right? Both the rectifiers that mention space in their name. Otherwise, right, when it comes to like stuff that's going to be available, Waltz in Masquerade is also probably going to be a very, very, very solid option for her due to the fact that it's a Ridacita craftable and it just buffs your attack like crazy when you deal damage to enemies with negative statuses. And remember, guys, she's all but confirmed to be the Fusion Burst character. So when it comes to lower budget options, this one's going to be there as well. It's very easy to get at R5, and it's entirely something that everybody can do. So yeah, to me, Denia looks like she's going to be one of the most free-to-play friendly units from the perspective of it shouldn't really take that much to build her because she already has the free-to-play option over here just based off of applied negative statuses. And, well, this thing performs adequately. It's not bad. It's actually pretty decent. Yes, having String Master is usually better. Yes, I think it actually does outperform Cosmic Ripples if you don't have the effects required for it. And of course, if you have any other signature weapon with crit, those probably might be better. But like I mentioned before, maybe this is a sign that she's one of the first characters that really doesn't want any crit at all. And we'll just have to see. But yeah, rectifiers do feel like they're in a comfortable spot. And being a rectifier that applies negative statuses, even a more comfortable spot with this bad boy over here. Now, that's going to be Denia's overall overview. Now it's time for us to talk a little bit about good old Hiyuki. Yes, we're saving this character for after Denia for a very specific reason. Because we have almost no information at all about what her fucking kit is going to do. The only thing we know is that she's Glacio and that she is a sword. And this is why I've been saying that I feel like Denia is going to be a dual attribute character that has a resonance mode for Glacio Chafe. Because I think that this is going to be a Glacio Chafe DPS. And the reason for that is extremely simple. Because we have no other existing sort of support in the game for anything Glacio related. Yes, the only other Glacio sub DPS that we have, ladies and gentlemen, is fucking G-Jaw. All we have is G-Jaw, who is a Carlotta slave. That's pretty much it. And unless Kuro wants to do something goofy as fuck, right? Just goofy as hell, like make Hiyuki a Glacio resonance skill damage dealer when we don't have any other limited damage types for anything else Glacio, Jedge is probably not going to be a very good pick for her. And then you kind of look at the rest of the roster and you're like, oh yeah, there's no other fucking Glacio units over here. So who would Hiyuki even work with in this context? And my personal take is this. I think Hiyuki, all that talk about her being stronger than a Sentinel, stronger than all of that, that looks like it's a sign to me that she probably might have dual resonance modes as well. One that's like a baseline damage type, and then the other that's the Glacio Chafe mode. And that would also sort of coincide with the fact that Denia might have that alternative form as well with the blue gloves to apply Glacio Chafe in a similar way that she applies Fusion Burst. And then you would have Denia supporting the Hiyuki team with Glacio Chafe, and then Denia supporting the Imith team with Fusion Burst. That seems like a good role for a Threnodian Resonator, right? That seems like it would fill in that sort of like lore significance that a Threnodian resonator should have. That's just my personal take. I think it makes a good bit of sense, and you're free to disagree, but I do feel like I'm cooking a little bit over here. I feel like I am not burning down the kitchen. We're at just the right temperature. And so with that in mind, I think Hiyuki's probably going to have 2 separate damage types that she focuses on. And the unfortunate thing is, guys, I think it's really hard to nail it down because she's definitely not in a position to have a lot of baseline Glacio support. So what this means is that, who knows? Maybe she actually works with Lede. That would be a little bit annoying, though. But if Hiyuki is a Glacio Liberation damage dealer, then I guess that means that, oh, she takes the Toon Rupture team that Imeth had before, and now you're meant to use Imeth in the Fusion Burst team with Denia. That could be something that occurs. And then they kind of like swap back and forth. I'm going to be real. That is a possibility that makes a lot of sense. Hiyuki gets a Toon Rupture mode or something like that. And then when you pull Denia, you get the decision of, okay, I'm going to go play the Glacio Chafe Hiyuki team here and then use the Toon Rupture Imeth team there. Or the Toon Rupture Hiyuki team, or the Toon Strain Hiyuki team. That could be good too, right? I think Hiyuki could easily be a Toon Strain character as well. The Toon Strain Hiyuki team, or Toon whatever Hiyuki team, and then the Denia team with Imeth and Chisa on the other end. That would actually make very, very high value sort of pulls for a lot of players, would make it very easy for people to pull as well, because if you have Imeth's team, then theoretically you would have Hiyuki's too. That would be a lot of value though, and I'm not necessarily sure if Kuro wants to go with that, but the thing is, it's like, that's the unfortunate part when we've got so few details about these characters' kits. It doesn't make it pretty clear what direction we're actually going to be going. However, what we can have a conversation about, now that we've discussed all of those, is this: damage types. Because one thing is clear. Even if a character does end up being negative status focused in their kit, and I'm just going to be honest, I am 100% certain that this character is going to have Glacio Chafe, because otherwise, like, then the Japanese character wouldn't work with the Japanese character. That would just be a sin, wouldn't it, when we only have 2 in the game? Let's go ahead and start taking a look at the weapons. Because every negative status unit, right, they end up dealing something related to a damage type. Cardathea is the one that seems to be the least damage type oriented because she kind of just does a mix of everything when it comes to arrow, but she is technically mostly basic attack. With Zani over here, she's kind of just spectral frazzle damage, but you do like having heavy attack bonuses on her as well. And the good news is that when it comes to swords, you got a lot of good sword options in the game. And they essentially encompass almost every single damage type we've ever fucking seen. Let's go through the roster. For echo skill damage, right? Maybe Hiyuki is an echo skill damage dealer. Could be the case. Emerald Sentence over here, Chu Yan's weapon, right? Oh, wait, no, this isn't the echo skill. This is the heavy attack weapon. Fuck it. If she's heavy attack damage, right? Great, you got Chu Yan's signature. That gives 60% heavy attack. You got resonant skill damage. I guess you got Laser Shearer. This is like the most weird fucking weapon I've ever seen in the game. I'm gonna be honest. I don't think this is Hiyuki's though, for a very simple reason. Because then that would mean she's resonant skill and Glacio damage, which is like fucking stupid, right? Yeah, who is this? This one is why this damage bonus over here being resonant skill is 100% why I don't think it's for Hiyuki, because then this would mean that Hiyuki would just directly compete with Carlotta in a way that makes no fucking sense at all. However, it does have that Toon Strained bonus. And remember what I said before about Hiyuki maybe being a Toon Strained character? Maybe it is this. And that's supposed to be the difference that's occurring. But then again, it's just, I don't know. This just seems a little bit janky to me. To like directly compete with Carlotta like that. Who knows? Or maybe this is for the next form of Rover that comes out as well. That could also be something too. On the topic of resonant skills though, you've already got this one too. Chang Li signature. And this is actually one of the stronger signatures in the game in terms of the overall stats it provides. And again, this is entirely something that's covered as well. So you got heavy attack here. You've got resonant skill damage over here. And then you've got basic attack in 2 forms with Red Spring, where you get 30% basic attack, and then, you know, this other 40% over here is not really that accessible. Still gives 30% basic attack, and then crit rate, and then a 12% attack bonus. Red Spring's gonna be there. And then a Flickering Valor, if you, like, I mean, technically it does give a higher basic attack damage bonus, but like that ER substat is fucking horrendous. It's 77%. The base attack is dog shit. This is like a very specific weapon for Brant, right? Naturally, though, I haven't been talking about one option that has proven its value over and over again. And this is one of the biggest reasons for why being a sword user is always good. EOG. Because guys, EOG is just kind of like an overpowered weapon. From the perspective of this thing is kind of just too general because it provides everything that a main DPS wants. It providing ER can actually be a lot more comfortable than other weapons providing 12% attack because ER is almost mandatory for every single unit to be able to actually do your rotation properly. And extending your rotation because you don't have enough ER to do more attacks is one of the biggest DPS losses in the fucking game. And when this has the general bonus of giving attack just whenever you cast a resonant skill, then this ends up just giving you a circumstance, right, where you get general attack buffs, a super helpful ER stat, but the only thing you actually lose is like a pretty significant, you know, damage bonus of some type. See 48% over here, or maybe 60% over here. But the end result is that this thing ends up being usable on pretty much every single sword user other than Kartathea. And that's actually one of the reasons for why Kartathea is one of the most signature reliant units in the game. It's because she doesn't really work that well with EOG because she's an HP scaler, and she actually prefers having almost no base attack on her weapon at all. And a good part of EOG's strength and like budget and its power is based off the fact that it has a really, really high base attack. And guess what else is clear about EOG, ladies and gentlemen? EOG is one of the only swords in the game that actually, at least like a little bit, looks like a katana. It's also icy. It doesn't look straight up like a katana, but it's one of the most similar looking ones to it. And what is she holding over here? It's an icy katana. If the ice sword doesn't work on Hiyuki, that would be tragic. Right? It would just be incredibly fucking tragic if the ice sword that literally breathes. This is one of the only weapons with like a special effect like this, right? And if you look at Hiyuki's actual splash art, ladies and gentlemen, well, what do you notice over here? There's also like the same sort of like smoke and flame or like smoke and like vapor coming off of her weapon over here. I will be very, very upset if Hiyuki does not perform at least at like somewhat of a decent level on EOG, because it would just be like, what the fuck is even going on here, man? And for an anniversary unit, I think part of Kuro learning from the past anniversary is not making the debut unit like Zani. Because holy shit, I feel like the amount of buyer's remorse that people have for this dog shit character is at levels that have never been seen in the game's history. I feel like part of the reason why people don't like last year's anniversary is because this was the debut unit for it. And this unit is like so specific, so fucking buns, and it's just like, dude, you feel like you need to have every single piece for her to function, and like everyone regrets pulling her. Most people regret pulling her. A good part of the population regrets pulling her, right? I think the best way for them to deal with that is to have Hiyuki, right? This character be, like I mentioned, that dual form unit, where one of them is the specific Glacio Chafe version, while the other, right, is way less team reliant, way more general, and has, you know, maybe like, you know, lower damage potential in their free-to-play teams, but they actually do have free-to-play teams. And I think that would be the perfect way for them to start off this anniversary with a bang. One of the highest value units in the history of the game. Because one thing is very clear about Imeth. She does, on the surface, appear to be high value based off the number of teams that she can run. But one of the unfortunate things about her kit is that she kind of requires premium teammates to really have like a baseline level of performance. And that's because of her reliance, right, on having Toon Rupture from Lene to be able to deal a majority of her damage. But guess what mechanic, when it comes to Toon, doesn't really need that level of boost? Luke Herson has surprisingly been one of the best pulls value-wise in the game, simply due to the fact that instead of being Toon Rupture, this guy is Toon Strain. And not having Lene for Toon Strain lineups, you don't really feel like you're losing that much at all. And so that's why my personal take when it comes to Hiyuki and how she's going to work, she's going to be like Imith, but instead of having a Toon Rupture mode, I think she's going to have a Toon Strain mode. And then the other one, Glacio Chafe. And I feel like that could be something that really spices up this game a lot. And of course, with her having a Toon Strain mode, she would feel a lot more free-to-play accessible, especially compared to a unit like Imith. And if she also has the bonus of being able to use EOG too, well, boy, oh boy, this could be the best pull for free-to-plays since Luke, which is not really that far long ago. But let's just say that Kuro's been putting out some very free-to-play friendly units as of late. And having a unit like this debut on the anniversary, well, let's be honest here, that would be one of the greatest gifts to the players ever. And if she does have that Giga Premium team as well, when it comes to Glacio Chafe, and then Denia also has the dual forms, where she supports Glacio Chafe too, then that lets Kuro get their bag from the whales as well, right? It's kind of like a 2-for-1. Have a free-to-play, a way to satisfy the free-to-play units or the low spenders, and then on the other end, directly drive sales for Denia and Chisa as well on the other side. That's what I think is going to occur. I think there are lore reasons for all of this happening and lore reasons for all of it making sense. Hopefully, that's the future that we end up having for this upcoming release. And of course, like I mentioned before, even if you're watching this vid after leaks and all the info has come out for the units, we've been making it with absolutely no knowledge at all for what's ahead. So the main thing is, have your EOG ready, and on the off chance, right? On the off chance, and I've been saving my standard pulls for a reason, that the Bosod Astrolabe is actually really good for Denia, just save your standard pulls for now. And maybe you'll find that you get a really high value exchange out of it later. Because this thing has such a unique and retarded blend of stats. Surely it actually has a user, right? And it's not like it's not just like there to, like you have to select it too. So it's like surely it has a user, right? Like surely. You can't get it accidentally. Let me know what you all thought. Peace out.